I'm not in the right channel, am I? Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be here. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Stick. Apparently Telltale's away, so unfortunately you're stuck with me. But don't worry, we're gonna do some good debunking today on a Creationist. To get you guys warmed up, I'll tell you what to expect. This brown bear here represents an Evolution 101 website where they teach you evolution, so everything he says is true. This motherfucker, however, is the Creationist who is attempting to debunk this poor bear. So without further ado, let's tear him a new one.
Mechanisms of change. Each of these four processes is a basic mechanism of evolutionary change. Mutation. A mutation could cause parents with genes for bright green coloration to have offspring with a gene for brown coloration. That would make genes for brown coloration more frequent in the population than they were before the mutation.
A change in the frequency of a trait does not equate to a change in the genes of the individuals.
And no one claimed that. Of course, gene frequency only applies to a population, not to an individual. It wouldn't make sense in the individual level. Thanks for attacking a position that no one is holding.
In the example given, the beetles already had genes for brown. This has no bearing on the story above unless it's meant to explain why brown beetles exist in the first place, which in the paragraph, they do not attempt to do.
The bear said that a mutation could turn a green beetle offspring into a brown one. Pay the fuck attention. So no, they don't necessarily already have the genes for brown.
I suppose I can do it for them. Seriously, am I the only person doing any work for the Understanding Evolution team? I'm not even on the team. Okay, so here's how it would work. The beetles start off with only the genetic information for green. Then, somehow, a mutation adds the genetic information necessary for brown pigment to be created in the place of the green pigment.
Looks like you're kinda catching on. Please don't ruin it with some creationist logic.
It could be the result of a pre-existing recessive gene.
First of all, by pre-existing recessive gene, you mean that the allele for brown color would have already existed in the population. Of course, that's a possibility, but all the brown bear said was that it's a mutation, so it doesn't necessarily already exist. The only thing that matters is that it increases the gene frequency of brown. Second of all, it doesn't have to be recessive. I know we're talking about hypotheticals here, but since it could easily also be dominant, I see no reason for you to even add the word recessive. Trying to sound more authentic, are we?
Or the brown coloration could simply be the color of a beetle with no pigment, and so this mutation would actually be a loss of the gene which codes for green.
Yeah, okay, a possibility, but the bear never mentioned what kind of mutation it was. It's very possible that it was a loss of function, but that doesn't mean gain of functions don't exist. I know what you're trying to do here. You're trying to disprove all the mechanisms of evolution as being impossible for large-scale evolution, but I'm sorry, all you're doing is twisting the information and presenting it in a dishonest manner.
Incidentally, this kind of mutation, wherein information is lost, is the only kind of beneficial mutation which has ever been observed.
Flat out lie right there. There have been plenty of mapped out beneficial gain of function mutations. One extremely basic example is antibiotic resistance. The main method of obtaining resistance is the bacteria producing an enzyme that can break down the compound. This is a gain of function mechanism that involves the production of a new enzyme. Penicillin, the antibiotic that revolutionized medicine, became ineffective due to this. This is why we have penicillin derivatives such as ampicillin, amoxicillin, and methicillin. Penicillin is a beta-lactam drug that interferes with cross-peptidase activity, which is an activity essential for proper cell wall formation, especially for gram-positive bacteria. That's why penicillin is most effective against gram-positives. In response, those bacteria evolved and obtained beta-lactamase, a type of enzyme that breaks down penicillin, thus giving it resistance. In order to combat this, we developed other antibiotics, such as the ones I mentioned before, ampicillin, amoxicillin, and methicillin. Ampicillin is used to increase effectiveness against gram-negative bacteria by allowing easier penetration of the outer membrane. You're probably familiar with ampicillin since it's used pretty often to grow cultures and kill off ones that do not have a desired inserted gene. Amoxicillin, also called second amino penicillin, inhibits beta-lactamase activity, preventing it from utilizing it for resistance. Meanwhile, methicillin is a beta-lactam that is resistant to beta-lactamase. Basically penicillin on steroids. So you see, these derivatives of penicillin are present and effective only because of the gain of function evolution of beta-lactamase in bacteria, so the existence of these antibiotics itself proves you wrong. Also, here's a second argument you should consider. If, let's say, we stopped using antibiotics altogether, eventually all the non-resistant bacteria will thrive while the resistant ones will die. This has been observed many times, such as for HIV drugs. Do you know why this happens? Because this new enzyme it needs to produce has a biological cost. It needs to dedicate resources to produce the enzyme responsible for its resistance. This is also an indication that the resistance is a gain of function. So before you make a video telling everyone that a gain of function beneficial mutation doesn't exist, go read a fucking textbook.
Migration. Some individuals from a population of brown beetles might have joined a population of green beetles. That would make genes for brown coloration more frequent in the green beetle population than they were before the brown beetles migrated into it.
Do I need to say how this doesn't represent new genetic information?
I don't think the bear claimed that it does. This is just a mechanism that could increase the gene frequency of a certain trait within a population. That is a mechanism of evolution. That's all that's being said here.
The brown beetles who moved into the all-green neighborhood were already brown beetles. They already existed. Let's all take a second and remember that evolution is supposed to explain the process by which bacteria became wolves and cabbages.
Evolution is only change over time. There are many mechanisms of evolution, and the bear is only talking about a few of them. If you're talking about speciation or larger scaled evolution, then that would most likely require a combination of these mechanisms. Look, the bear here is only teaching us about the mechanisms, but somehow you keep trying to twist it to promote your creationist propaganda.
Uncle Chuck's book wasn't called Moving to a New Neighborhood of the Species. It was Origin of the Species.
Darwin proposed a crucial mechanism of evolution, natural selection. He didn't come up with every single detail of evolution itself.
That is what this theory of his is supposed to explain. Thus, migration doesn't quite do the job.
Migration itself wouldn't do the job, but like I said, you'll need a combination of these mechanisms. Mutation, natural selection, etc., all need to work together to cause any large-scale changes to any population.
Genetic drift. Imagine that in one generation, 2 brown beetles happened to have 4 offspring survive to reproduce. Several green beetles were killed when someone stepped on them and had no offspring. The next generation would have a few more brown beetles than the previous generation, but just by chance. These chance changes from generation to generation are known as genetic drift.
Once again, no new genetic information has been produced. So this isn't evolution.
Genetic drift is another important mechanism of evolution. No one is claiming that it's evolution itself. I think you have just completely misunderstood what they're saying.
You can have as many brown beetles as you like, and it'll never make beetles with ears. For that, you need to add some genetic information. Feel free to verify this scientifically. Put on some boots, go stomp every green beetle you can find, and when all of them are dead, none of the other beetles will have ears.
Natural selection. Imagine that green beetles are easier for birds to spot, and hence, eat. Brown beetles are a little more likely to survive to produce offspring. They pass their genes for brown coloration onto their offspring. So in the next generation, brown beetles are more common than in the previous generation.
According to the title of Darwin's book, natural selection is supposedly the means by which species originate.
Alright, he goes on a bit more about Darwin and stuff, and I'm just gonna add this. Darwin came up with natural selection, but that doesn't mean he's the master of evolution or anything. After him, thousands of scientists continued to fortify his theory and evolution itself. So it doesn't matter how many times you attack Darwin or his book, it won't put a dent on evolution.
But look at natural selection. It removes part of the population. If this happened often enough and wide enough, it is hypothetically possible that it could cause the loss of an allele permanently.
But the thing is, we're not proposing natural selection as a method of obtaining gain-of-function properties of the genome that is mostly caused by mutations, and when a gain-of-function mutation occurs, natural selection selects out the beneficial ones to be passed on to the offspring. It's such a simple concept. The bear is not saying that natural selection itself can produce such changes. All it's saying is that it's a mechanism. Anyway, this guy continues rambling about natural selection for a while, so we're gonna skip that.
All of these mechanisms can cause changes in the frequencies of genes in populations, and so all of them are mechanisms of evolutionary change. However, natural selection and genetic drift cannot operate unless there is genetic variation, that is, unless some individuals are genetically different from others.
Yes, this is very important. For all you creationists out there, this paragraph here is one crucial reason the story of Adam and Eve and Noah's Ark cannot be true. Because there are so few individuals, there isn't enough genetic variation. Genetic variation is important for the survival of any population, because without it, the whole population can easily be wiped out or go extinct. For example, a disease can easily come and kill off a whole species if there's no genetic variation due to the fact that there are no resistant traits in the population. Another example, if genetic variation didn't exist for bacteria and viral species, we could kill off all of them with just one drug. Insane, right? Sadly, that's not reality. Just like how a population surviving with just 2 members is also not reality. Not to mention that in your little fairy tale, that was done in all the species that were present on Noah's Ark. Absolutely ridiculous.
If the population of beetles were 100% green, selection and drift would not have any effect because their genetic makeup could not change.
This part is true. Are you enjoying the vast fluctuation between true and ridiculous? It's a lot like reading the ingredients on Cheetos or Twinkies.
Yeah, no, we're done here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you, Telltale, for allowing me to appear on his channel. It's been a real pleasure. And with that, I'm off. See you guys later.